This is a direct example how something that's trying to change the context of the security situation for software could be used in a way directly, with or without tools, to maybe specify something that we're talking the same language. These are 25 things I don't want to see happen in my code. There are lots of guidance from the folks I work with, folks outside, working groups trying to figure out how do you apply these sort of things. And I've read and distilled some of these, so I'm trying to quickly move down to the place where I can tell you what I'm doing. Here's a nice scary report. Actually, Mitre was part of this, and it's the mission impact on foreign influence on DoD software. It overly focuses on foreign influence, but the tactics, the things you can do to make sure your code is better, using static analysis tools, making sure you secure them when you have a repository and putting them away, making sure that you track all changes and additions to code with some kind of authentication that will withstand scrutiny. These are good practices. There's been developer guidance around forever. There's like Google anywhere. You'll find a list of, please don't use these things when you're doing C and C++. Here are good things to do. There's tons of coding sites. But anyway, there are things that we can actually point to. Documented guidance for writing code. And the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, has spent a lot of time on this because they care very much about this. And these guys are starting to act as an aggregation point. And you read any one of these practices here, whether you do some architectural threat modeling. So when I'm building this thing, what's it going to face? That would be nice to know when you're designing it. When I'm actually writing the code, is there something like coding practices, coding rules, code analysis, like the static code analysis, or maybe other kind of analysis tools I can use to make sure that in my build process, when I shoot my code in each night, the shame list comes out and who broke the build? Run that code then. Or run it every week on a build or an external build. Is there any other test tools I can use? Can you do something to the system to see if... So these are very good processes, and they're very agnostic. They're not telling you how to do them. And they set up a site to aggregate all this with exact how to use them. So you've got, here's kind of the goals, and here's kind of the ways to get there. This is a cheat sheet for doing good software assurance. If you take these couple pieces that I put in these last bunch of slides, here's the boring part. Ironically, and I do love the ISO standards. There's an ISO standard for doing this. And it has ISO standards framing up how to actually execute those steps that are suggested by the other folks. And I know it sounds boring, but read an ISO standard ones. These things are actually very good. We were using in the financial industry ISO standards and the British standards before that for information security because here are 10 domains to worry about and here are the kind of controls you need to make sure you answer for yourself if you want to be secure. It's a cheat sheet. And it might not be perfect, like the controls we work with in the Air Force. They're not perfect. There are 132, 133 controls that say you have to do these security things. Not perfect, but they are a list. And they do have a spirit and intent that actually solves a problem. And if you do knock them down, that's better than not having a list. It's better than not doing those things. So here's what I thought I'd do. Take those things early. Apply them at these places. Put design improvements in. This is my build-up slide. I'm going to get quickly to the end because we're right out of time. Okay. There's my summary. So all those pieces I sort of rambled on about all do come together in what I'm doing. I'm trying to leverage template language or ask for things I know I want to see. I want to see static code analysis used. Well, how do I ask for that? How do I specify when you build something is good enough? A measure. Because if you say it needs to be done a certain way and there's no measure to do it, it doesn't happen. The things we are missing are feedback loops, like I said. And we're trying to figure that out now. And we're still looking for those metrics and measures from the industry. Thank you. Any questions? Was that boring?
I have one. Actually, it's an interesting. I was just thinking of a completely different domain. I'm involved in aviation, and the checklist, which every pilot runs through before you start your plane. It's like a religion. You do this, but
and you may not agree with all of them all the time.
But if you look at aviation, like at Air Force data on fatalities, aviation accidents, the introduction of the checklist is the single biggest drop.
Yeah.
And to what extent do these ISO standards or some of these others provide that level of I mean,
So
could they be used
the United
almost
States
at that level?
The United States is different than Europe, right? Speaking from like a financial services perspective, the way that security or attestation works in the United States is, I want to do business with you. I want to exchange financial data because you're a bank and I'm a mutual fund company or something. Well, okay. Well, I worry about him and he worries about me. So we hire auditors. Third parties come and look and they make an attestation. Yeah, trust my name, PricewaterhouseCoopers or whatever you want to pick a name. And I looked at his data center and his computer controls and his general controls on handling money, and he's good. He meets standards. Well, he does that to me and everyone. So they have these few very well-known ones. So attestation is the way it's done. They take a third party that makes a statement about it and backs it up with, money and sort of like risk management for like an insurance company would do, shift the risk to a third party. In Europe, it's very different. They look to standards-based and conformance to a standard. That's why the ISO standards generally impact Europe and Britain much more than they do us. But the sad thing is even if those aren't being held for us to be compliant with, they do solve a lot of problems. And I see smart places using them in the United States. I don't see them enforced in any way, though.
Any other questions? I'd like to thank you.
Thank you.